Amanda.
Hey, Tommy.
Do your parents love you?
I mean, I sure hope so. I am one of 6, but
Wow.
I sure hope so.
Have they ever went on an international vacation forgetting you at home?
My parents have never gone on an international vacation, so thank God no.
All right. Well, luckily they're not loaded. And luckily, I guess they love you. Can you guess what we're going to talk about?
I sure hope it's Home Alone.
It is, and that's what we're going to talk about today on Can We Talk About?
I don't know how to pack a suitcase. I've never done this once in my whole life.
Tough.
That's what Megan said.
What did I say? You told Kevin tough. The dope was whining about a suitcase. What am I supposed to do? Shake his hand and say congratulations, you're an idiot?
I'm not an idiot.
Oh, really? You're completely helpless. Everyone has to do everything for you.
She's right, Kev.
Excuse me, Pupils. I'm a lot smaller than you. I don't know how to pack a suitcase. Do you know what I should pack?
Buzz told you, cheap face. Toilet paper and water.
Listen, Kev, what are you so worried about? You know Mom's gonna pack your stuff anyway. You're what the French call les incompetents.
What?
P.S. You have to sleep on the hide-a-bed with Fuller. If he has something to drink, he's gonna wet the bed.
This house is so full of people. It makes me sick. When I grow up and get married, I'm living alone. Did you hear me? I'm living alone. I'm living alone.
Can we talk about Home Alone?
Absolutely, we can.
Everyone grew up with Home Alone at this point. I mean, I feel like we've gotten to a point now where anyone humanly alive worth talking to, it either came out when they were a kid or they grew up with just watching it as part of like movies you watch around the holidays, right?
It's part of the Christmas zeitgeist. Like it is the movie. I mean, there's a handful of movies, but this is one of the ones. It doesn't matter if you're a millennial who watched it in the 90s growing up like we did, but even like we were just talking about my niece and nephew, they're younger than me. They love these kinds of movies. It just, every generation continues to enjoy it. It's just so good.
For what it's worth, I don't know. Are we going to talk about 1 and 2 or are we just going to talk about 1?
We could talk about 1 and 2. I mean, do you have a favorite?
I mean, what's funny too is I grew up in New York City, but even then so like even him being unleashed on New York City was sort of like a fun. I always found that more exciting as a kid for some reason than just like wandering around like a, residential neighborhood.
Okay.
Did you have the opposite?
I right before we started recording, I asked Henry what his favorite was, and mine is the first one, but I don't know. It's a very hard. I like them both as favorites for different reasons.
Okay.
Like the first one was you could totally, when you were, I don't remember how old I was when I came out, but I could totally see myself like, oh yeah, if someone tried to break in my house, I could do this. If my family forgot me, I could totally do this. I could defend my house. And then 2, which was set in New York City, for me, that was like fantastical. That was like, oh my gosh, could you imagine staying at the Plaza Hotel and getting room service and being able to go to a toy store and buy whatever you want? Like that seemed so far-fetched in the best way. Like I could fantasize about that one. Yeah. But they're both so good. They're so good.
So wait, are you saying you didn't fantasize about the first one, about like just having the house to yourself?
I think it felt more realistic. Like I was watching that as, okay, this is really great, but also I have to study this. If someone tries to break into my house, I've got to make sure I've got my mob movies ready to go on VHS to play in the background. I had to have, that was more like, this is great. This is how I prepare. Where the one in New York City, it was like, well, even if I was left in New York City and had one of my parents' credit cards, I doubt the limit would even be able to afford the room. So would not have gone the same for me as it did for Kevin McCallister. There's
so much stuff we can talk about these movies as far as like the viewing it as a kid, viewing it as an adult, all that stuff like we've done with which funny enough, I mean, we don't have that many episodes under our belt here, but this is our second John Hughes movie.
Yeah.
And there is a vibe to the characters beyond, like if you look beyond it and you view it as a kid or you view it as an adult, 2 very different movies.
Agreed.
And
seems to be our go-to.
Yeah. But also it's like, wow, the whole time was this just John Hughes's whole thing that he was able to write a movie from 2 different perspectives. We just didn't recognize it until we saw the perspective.
It's so good though. That's his genius, right? Because then you're not only enjoying it just when you're a teenager and being like, oh, I really liked that movie when I was a teenager. I really liked that movie when I was a kid. He writes movies that you can continue to enjoy in different ways throughout your life.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny too, because like, you know, growing up or in like the later or the early 2000s, let's call it, between, you know, SpongeBob SquarePants or the Shrek movies and things, right? Those were things where it was like, oh, like there's like little wink, wink inside jokes, you know, adults, double entendre things that only adults get. That's a whole different thing than having like, you view this movie as like a kid who's like, oh man, it'd be so cool. I can do whatever I want, versus like you as an adult being like, Jesus Christ. Like, first off, what did the father do for a living?
I know he was loaded.
He was loaded. And
Let's
then on
go
top
to
of that,
Paris.
I mean, yeah, well, not only to go to Paris, but he paid for everyone to go to Paris, right? Isn't that the thing?
Yeah. All the extended family.
All the extended family. Oh, that's the other thing too. I mean, maybe I'll start here because we got to get down to basics about the movie in general. But
oh my God, I love that.
Get lost in who everyone is. Like, all right, so and I feel like you know this better than I would, and I'm trying to look at this list of myself. All right, so there's Kevin McCallister, right? Yes. Who has just an older brother? Is that it?
No, he also has a sister.
Okay.
He has a sister as well, who was actually recast. The whole cast came back for Home Alone 2. Except for his sister was the only person recast.
Really?
Yes. I don't know why. I should have the answer for that, but I don't have it.
Well, I was going to say, who was the sister?
I don't know who she was, but she's an older sister and she's recast in the second movie. But he's got his brother Buzz, which one of the favorite lines that Henry and I say all the time is Buzz's girlfriend, woof, all the time.
Okay, so Hilary Wolf as Megan, Kevin's oldest sister.
Okay.
Did he have more than one? Just that was it, right?
I felt like I knew this answer up until this point.
Oh yeah, wait, it's okay. According to Wikipedia, which we're going over in real time here, there's Linny, Kevin's older sister, and then Megan, Kevin's oldest sister, who seems to be the friendliest of his siblings.
Okay, this is actually ringing a bell because she's actually very nice to him. Isn't she the one? One of them is the one that realizes that he's not with them, or is it the mom? It's the mom. Never mind, it's the mom.
Is it? Well, who like there's like the whole Kevin's not here, Kevin's not here, Kevin's not here, and they walk it backwards, right? All right, so he has apparently two sisters and then a brother,
Buzz,
who is Buzz.
The best.
Right.
I love Buzz.
How do you love Buzz? Even as an adult, I still hate Buzz.
Like, you hate him, but he's like, he was cast perfectly. And did you watch the movies that made us about this?
Yes.
On Netflix?
Yes.
Which has like the best information. I can't wait to talk all about that. But when they were talking about the casting director, was like, I just looked through a bunch of headshots until I saw a kid that like, he looked like I hated him. And that's how Buzz got cast. And he's like such a sweet, nice man.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, I mean, did you, just to jump forward a little bit, did you see the newest, like, I forget what it's called now, Home Alone again, whatever the hell it's called?
No.
The new one they did like last year. Ellie Kemper's in it. In 2021, they released Home Sweet Home Alone. It was like a Disney Plus, direct to Disney Plus thing. Which was also kind of weird because the entire thing was obviously, it was planned out to specifically be a product for Disney Plus to help them sell it a little bit, but they also wanted to kind of soft reboot. The whole reason I mention it, also Pete Holmes is in it. I know you like Pete Holmes.
I do.
So that's a further explainer.
I do.
Buzz pops up because he's a police officer now, and he gets out of the car and it, shows his nameplate. It says McCallister. And at some point someone calls the police and says that there's a kid home alone. Can you go check on the house? He's like, oh, that's my brother playing a prank on me. He does this every year.
Oh, that's so good.
That sounds darker.
Pretty dark.
When you think about it, like after all these years, he's like, make my family remember that time they left me home alone as a kid and it did all this damage to me.
Well, yeah, that goes back to, right, like the whole watching it as a kid to watching it as an adult. Yeah. I know Catherine O'Hara, who was cast as his mom in the second movie, was like, I just kind of don't love this anymore because it feels like he just wasn't loved enough. Like this feels really awful. Yeah. And if you look at it as an adult, I remember watching, just catching up for this and thinking to myself, this poor kid would need so much therapy if this kid would be screwed.
I mean, it's funny too. Well, even watching it now, because I understand like how as a kid you would sort of side with the kid, but even watching it now, like even the beginning of the movie when, you know, after the milk spills everywhere and then the mom ends up sending out to the attic, she's a bitch to him. Like she's really mean to him.
She's so mean to him and he's so cute.
But the thing is, too, it's funny because even out of the acting of it, right, if they tried to play the mom up as being like sort of exasperated, like, oh, there's so much going on and we're stressed out because travel and stuff and like just go to the attic, right, or like, you know, but she's sort of like cruel and vindictive to him, like, oh, well, maybe you wish for this and maybe we won't be here. Like just like she's really like digging into him. I kind of understand why Buzz is the way he is with his little brother because
it feels like an 80s mom though. You know what I mean? Like 80s was like the end of the latchkey kid area, right? So 80s was like the moms were just like, it's not the kids are seen or not heard. It's not like your parents kind of thought second thought about leaving you home alone. You know, like it was kind of like, oh, maybe you're not old enough for this quite yet.
Yeah.
But there was still kind of like a get the hell away from me vibe in parenting. Could you imagine today if a loaded family left their kid home alone, even if they forgot, they would be vilified, crucified. Like, oh my God, the people would come for them. And it's funny that you say that because she is kind of mean, but it's definitely like 80s mom vibes.
Yeah. I mean, and it plays up later as like, you know, boy loves his mom. And that's the other thing too, is like, I mean, growing up, I mean, I feel like everyone's different, but this kid had like zero relationship with his father either. Apparently the father and
did not care,
could care less. And Kevin could care less about his dad. Like it was a really weird, it's like, I guess that's why he was loaded.
Yeah. He was probably loaded because dad was always at work and didn't give a shit about his kids, especially his tiny one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it all checks out, but it doesn't make it suck any less.
Yeah. And then, all right, can we talk about extended family too? Because we're really getting and this all connects too, right? Because the movie kicks off, and everyone is at the house, right? It's just overrun with people, and so okay, so you have apparently he has two sisters and a brother. He has his mom, and then who else is in the family? So you have Uncle Frank, right?
Yeah, I like Uncle Frank.
Is he the one who sings in the shower?
Yeah, I just like he's cute.
Yeah.
Like I'm endearing to people that are sweet like that. But I mean, again, I should probably think about this from an adult's point of view. I don't know that I would love Uncle Frank as a kid, but
well, here's the thing that boggles my mind, right? Is like I think we've all had kind of, you know, different family and stuff. Clearly, it's a weird sentence. But I'm looking at this list, right? And what always kind of confused me is like the family tree, if you will, of everyone, right? So there's Uncle Frank and there's Uncle Rob, apparently, and I'm trying to figure out who Uncle Rob is. But so Kieran Culkin, you know, who we all know is Macaulay Culkin's younger brother, is in the movie. He plays Fuller, the one who he's the lactose intolerant one, or is it?
He's the little cousin. Yeah, he's the little cousin with the glasses. He's so cute.
Pepsi? Is he like Pepsi, right?
He's cute.
Do you know which he's supposed to be? He's supposed to be Uncle Frank's son.
Oh, I don't even remember that.
I'm
now looking at the family tree photo.
There's a family tree photo?
I just found it.
Well, anyway, my whole point to that is the fact that Uncle Frank looks like he's a retiree and like up there. And apparently he has like a 6-year-old kid. But no, younger because Kevin's 8 in this, right? Kevin's supposed to be 8 years old.
I believe so. I know Macaulay Culkin was 9 when the movie was shot. Okay. So I don't know if they did it, you know, accurate to how old he was. But
yeah, well, he was, according to this, and I do remember this from, I think it was The Movies That Made Us, that he was an 8-year-old. But Uncle Frank, you know, look what you did, you little jerk. You know, that guy, you know, is supposed to be the father of this young little kid. I don't know. That was the thing that threw me off. I was like, wait, I don't know if this is all really thought out. Anyway, maybe I'm putting too much thought into the realities of
Hold on, I'm going to
these uncles and cousins and things.
Because there's Rob and Georgette McCallister, Peter and Kate McCallister, and Frank and Leslie McCallister. First of all, who made this family tree? I applaud their... Okay, so Fuller is Frank's kid.
Yeah.
Fuller has 5 kids, and Rob has 4 kids. Good Lord, this was an expensive trip.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Holy shit.
And also, apparently, I just read this too. Jeff, Kevin's older brother.
Yeah, I just
Kevin
looked at that.
has
There's 5 kids on this family branch for Peter and Kate. Wow.
Which, by the way, I don't think they explain that pretty well, right?
Clearly, we didn't friggin' know till just now.
But I also think if you knew that, maybe that lends a little bit more towards him getting lost in the shuffle, because he's not just a middle child. He's not the youngest of 2. He's the youngest of 5.
That'll happen. As someone with 5 siblings, that'll happen. Yeah.
So anyway,
I'd be lying if I didn't get forgotten after pickup from a field trip before. I'd be lying if I didn't say that happened.
But I feel like this almost kind of helps better explain why he's sort of like lost in this.
Okay. I'll allow that.
Right.
I'll allow that through. Still, I feel so bad for him.
Buzz, Megan, Linny, Jeff, and Kevin. And Jeff was the kid from Pete and Pete, the older brother from Pete and Pete, right?
Oh, now I'm seeing it in my head. Yes. Oh, Pete and Pete. Yeah. What a show. What a show.
I love. Oh, we should do it. We should do an episode on Pete and Pete.
Pete and Pete. So good.
Yeah. And then Uncle Frank, who looks like he's pushing, 56, has 5 kids, and they're all no older than like 16. So I don't know, man.
Good for him.
I don't know. Yeah. Apparently. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway. And even funnier too, I just also saw this too, is Uncle Frank and Uncle Rob are both the brothers of Peter, which is Kevin's dad.
Yes.
But there is, who's not invited on this trip or to the house or anything? Any of his wife's family.
Not at all. It's his money, goddammit. He's the man of the house.
That's it. That's all you get. So anyway.
That is too much family for a trip. I'm sorry. I love my family, but no way would all of both sides. I mean, I have 4 parents, but no way would all of them be invited on a trip. We'd kill each other. There would be blood.
Yeah.
That's too many people for a trip.
Also to France.
To France? First of all, Uncle Frank is not appreciating anything about France. Myrtle Beach at best would have been the best idea for them.
Yeah. Well, in the second one, where do they go in the second? Is it Miami? Or Orlando? Where do they try to go in the second one?
I honestly don't remember that.
You don't remember that?
No, where they go?
They were going to Florida, but I just forget where in Florida, because that was the whole thing. They don't have Christmas trees in Florida. They have palm trees.
Yes, that's right. Right. They were going to Miami.
They were going to Miami. Okay. Yeah. Dreary, rainy Miami. And it was even funnier too. Can I just point this out? They fly to Miami, right? Again, a second trip, right? Or like the first for Kevin, supposedly, right? The family who apparently is loaded flew to France last time. This time they're going to stay domestic. They go to fly to Miami. And because here's the thing, nothing gets shuffled because of Kevin getting lost and in New York, right? So they should be going to the hotel and everything that they were already going to stay at, but they end up like at this like Motel 6 looking thing. So was that ever explained? Because as I'm saying this out loud,
Kevin's got his dad's credit card. So
yeah, I would assume that's the reason, but they never play that, right? Do they?
Okay, I don't know.
I'm finding plot holes and things we can
left
fix.
And right. Okay,
about the movie.
So first of all, something that we do have to talk about eventually is the solo that Kevin has.
I feel like I started a
Buzz
rabbit hole here.
It's just so good. No, it's fine. Okay, so the family lands in Miami. They discover that Kevin's missing. Then they file the police report. And then the police trace Peter's credit card and they fly immediately to New York. Meanwhile, blah, blah, blah. So do they talk about him? Because they do. They stay in that shitty hotel. Isn't it that they have to stay in the hotel for one night because they can't get a flight out till the next day or something?
Yeah. But that's the thing is like, and then the hotel they end up staying at is this like decrepit.
It's a crack den. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a crack den.
It's not great.
Right. And, and then Kevin's quote unquote living it up at the plaza.
We really should have had Henry on this. I feel like he has all these answers.
Well, anyway, I gotta let me double back. So anyway, sorry, I went off on a weird tangent here,
as we
deciphering the legitimacy of the movie,
the dynamics of the McCallisters.
Right, the movie should have been like 2 hours long. It should have been like they should have like extended the running time to just explain through all these little plot holes. Even though you can kind of see little blurbs of it, I know over the years people have picked up on like deleted scenes about like the pizza scene. That was the whole thing. Like, you don't even notice that Kevin's ticket gets thrown in the garbage. If you blink, you miss it in the first one.
I wouldn't have noticed it. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. So moving on, all that happens. We all know that story. And then, we got to talk about, Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern. Cause,
if we talk about the casting for the movies, what I think is incredible, Joe Pesci / Harry, they were thinking John Lovitz, perhaps, or perhaps Robert De Niro. Yeah. Could you imagine if this movie was made with Robert De Niro as him? Joe Pesci was made for this.
Yeah.
But if you watch the movies that made us, one of my favorite things is he had such a hard time not cursing on set. Yeah. And that's why he created that funny language. Yeah. Because he was like, I'll sound like a cartoon bad guy and get that out. But he got pissed off because his call times were so early and he had to golf 9 holes every morning. Yeah. It was a non-negotiable. And I think that is just so hilarious to me that he was I don't see Joe Pesci in my brain golfing 9 holes every morning. I see him cursing at children. I don't see him golfing 9 holes every morning.
Joe Pesci has over the years done so many things that at some point you're like, you can't even like paint a persona for him because it's almost unattainable. Like, this is the same guy who did My Cousin Vinny, right? Which is like, another comedy.
I love that.
But also, the same guy who did he did an entire like rap album in the early 2000s. Like, I think it was 2 years after this or so.
Remarkable.
He did a song, I think it was called The Bitch Is Gonna Getches. Like, it's Joe Pesci.
Found my first dance song for my wedding. Thank you.
You should walk out to like a Joe Pesci rap album.
I'm walking out to Wu-Tang Clan Ain't Nothing to Fuck With. And I told my mom I was doing that since I was about 10 years old. So I'm sticking through to it. It's happening. Get ready for it. You'll be there. So
that's a commitment.
Let's talk about Marv, which is Dan Stern. And I love this story because he was originally cast and they told him it'd be a 6-week shoot. And then he found out it was going to be an 8-week shoot. And they were on such a tight, low budget that he said, well, I get paid more for the extra 2 weeks. And they were like, sorry, no, we can't afford that. And he was like, all right, deuces, I'm out. And then they cast Dan Roebuck and him and Joe Pesci did like a screen test. And Joe Pesci was like, abso-fucking-lutely not. Like, this is not going to happen. And that's when they asked Stern to come back. And when you watch the movies that made us interview, he's like, thank God. Can you imagine if I didn't go back? Like, that was my career.
Wow. And it's really funny because Daniel Roebuck, I'm like trying to say what anyone would know him from. And there's something super obscure that I know him from. But I don't know. Is there anything that when you say his name, like, is there anything that stands out?
When I saw him, I was like, oh, he's so 1990s movies. Like, he's just in 1990s movies. He was in The Munsters. He was in, let me think of like the ones in the 90s that he was really in before this.
Well, also to be clear, and this is a whole other thing that is, I'm going to end up going down a rabbit hole if you ask me a question about it, but he was in the 2022 Munsters movie by Rob Zombie, which is
yes.
I don't know if do you know about that?
Sure do.
Okay. We
Sure
don't have to. If we should save that because I feel like that's a whole thing.
That's a deep one.
Yeah, I can't. I wouldn't watch that. I would watch it with you to talk about it, just to tell people not to watch it. But even that's a push.
Awful.
I know him from The Late Shift because I am a late night TV comedy nerd and historian nerd when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was a made for HBO movie that is
96.
fantastic. Yes, and it tells the story of when Jay Leno took over The Tonight Show and David Letterman went to CBS. There was an entire whole backstory that was deeper than most people know. It is a great story. I love it so much. But he played Jay Leno in that movie. He did a great job.
I'm just seeing that now. And he was also in Matlock.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
And then River's Edge with Keanu.
Yeah.
But now I have to watch The Late Shift. I think I would love it.
Oh my God, it's a great movie. I love that. It's one of my favorites.
All right, it's on the list.
But anyway, I didn't realize. So to go back, because I went off on a tangent. So did Daniel Stern potentially leave it before they started shooting and they did the test with Dan Roebuck?
Yep, they hadn't started shooting yet, and they told him 6 weeks. He was like, "Yes, I'm in. I love it." He and Joe Pesci had done something together before, and they had great chemistry. And then when they told him that it was going to end up being an 8-week shoot, he asked if he could get a raise. They said no. And so he was like, I felt like my pride told me that, I have to, I can't do this. So he quit. Yeah. And then Joe Pesci was like adamant about Dan Roebuck and him having no chemistry. And then sounds like Joe Pesci was a little bit of a dick, but they listened to him. And honestly, I can't imagine anyone better for these roles than the two of them. And I don't know if you've noticed, but this past year, and I tried like hell, not that we had anywhere to go. We took our nieces and nephews trick-or-treating, but I tried like hell to get Henry to be the Wet Bandits this year because I'm a lot shorter than him and chubby, and he is tall and skinny, and I thought we could kill it. But so many people, that was like one of the most popular costumes for people over the age of 20 this year was the Wet Bandits. Yeah.
Really?
Which is what they call themselves if you have been living under a rock for the past 25 years and just came out of your Encino Man coma.
Well, they call themselves in the first one. In the second, when they call themselves in the first one, because what they do is they flood the houses.
Yes.
When they rob the houses, they stick rags in the sink and turn it on and just let the houses flood. They were the Wet Bandits. And in the second one, Marv says he creates a tape hand with sticky glue on the outside and says he's going to be the Sticky Bandits.
That is so funny. I just realized we haven't said what this movie was about. So if you haven't watch this, I don't know what to tell you, but it's about a child essentially who gets forgotten on his family trip, and these people go around to affluent neighborhoods in Chicago and try to rob them, and these two gentlemen that we're talking about play the people that are breaking into these houses and robbing them and then flooding them out. And again, if you needed to hear that, I don't ever want to be your friend and I don't like you. But when you watch it, were you a huge John Candy fan? I am a huge John Candy fan, diehard John Candy fan. And this whole movie idea about writing this movie for Macaulay Culkin came because he was in Uncle Buck, another John Hughes classic. And he said, I'm going to write a movie specifically for him, for Macaulay Culkin, around this child, which is
it was
amazing.
That scene. It's that one scene when Macaulay Culkin, he is alone at home at that point, right? Where in Uncle Buck, where he's looking through the mail slot, talking to someone, coming over to the house and asking for ID and stuff. And then that just spurred John Hughes's brain into creating an entire character and movie around that.
Wrote this in a weekend. That is, I know we talked about this in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but he was I'd write from Thursday to Sunday, and I'd write a whole script. Yeah. It took me 2 hours to write the notes for this podcast. I can't imagine that.
It's okay. We will never. I mean, we'll never be as good as John Hughes when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Anything.
He's on another level. He's
on
another level.
Alone. That mullet alone.
Yeah, that mullet was something, wasn't it?
A thing of beauty. Mullet. And something I'm very excited to talk about with this movie. Well, obviously we can talk about the how they shot this movie and all the drama behind this movie almost didn't get made and all that. But Christopher Columbus ended up directing this movie. Personal Christopher Columbus fan, because as most of you that listen to this that know me know, I am a huge Harry Potter nerd. And he essentially created the world of Harry Potter in film and directed the first 2 Harry Potter movies.
Yeah.
And I love him.
Well, even funnier is the fact that I think he was supposed to, this came up, and I want to say, and now I got to check my notes here too.
He was supposed to do National Lampoons, and he and Chevy Chase didn't get along.
Yeah. And so did he get this because he didn't do Christmas Vacation, or?
Yes. So John Hughes was like, okay, he made a really shitty movie before this, Christopher Columbus, not John Hughes. And he really liked Christopher Columbus. He's like, I want to give him a movie to help launch his career back in the right direction. So of the 2 scripts, he wrote in 2 weekends, because as you do, this Christopher Columbus is obsessed with Christmas. So he was really excited to do a Christmas movie. So John Hughes gave him the opportunity, said National Lampoon is going to really help get your career back where it needs to be. Yeah. And he and Chevy Chase did not get along. And so he was like, I can't do this. And then he said to John Hughes, like, I can't do this. And at the same time, John Hughes is like, you can't do this. Yeah. And he felt really bad. And Christopher Columbus is like, I thought I was going to have to go back to screenwriting and figure it out. And then John Hughes was like, why don't you check out this other Christmas movie that I did? And he loved it.
Yeah. Well, for context, right? Because I feel like we should explain a little bit of Chris Columbus, because this guy is pretty much the director or writer, if you want to put it that way too, behind multiple generations of childhoods. So he was a writer on Gremlins. He was a writer on The Goonies, Young Sherlock Holmes, if anyone remembers that. And then his first directorial debut was Adventures in Babysitting, which oh my God, one of my favorites.
I was just going to say, I'm not embarrassed to say, but that was one of my favorite movies when I was younger. And I always felt like I wasn't allowed to watch it. So I would sneak it when it came on. Like, that was a Saturday afternoon staple in the early 90s. It would be on like whatever the channel was that would show movies all day. And I'd be like, yes, I'm going to watch this all day.
Also really funny, I didn't realize that was him in there. Anthony Rapp was in that, who a lot, like, it's really funny. People try, like, mention him. He was the one who, he was one of the accusers for, what's his name? Why can't I remember his name? Probably because he's been out of Hollywood for a couple of years. I can't remember his name. Oh man, I'm having a blank.
Harvey Weinstein?
No, not Harvey Weinstein. Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey. I didn't he always looked familiar to me, and I was like, I was like, there's something else. They would always credit him with being, quote unquote, like the actor from one of the Star Trek TV shows, whatever. But I was like, I knew him from something else. But anyway, back to Chris Columbus. So Adventures in Babysitting, great movie there. By the way, not before we leave the 80s,
let's never leave the 80s.
Gremlins, which we have to do an entire other episode on, because
my dog looks like one. It's the best.
And it's technically it's a Christmas movie. But the story behind the second one is bananas and one of my favorite Hollywood stories of all time. And we have to do an episode on that.
Okay. I don't know the story behind it. So.
Oh man, I can't wait to reveal it to you. I won't do it here. I'll do it eventually.
No, anyway, don't do it. I want to be surprised.
The movie I think you're talking about that he did before falling off of
the Elvis
Christmas
movie,
Vacation,
right?
Heartbreak Hotel, which he was a writer and director for.
Yeah, didn't go so hot.
No. And then he was a writer on the animated movie Little Nemo Adventures in Slumberland, which is still to this day, like a weird, like a cult hit. And then after Home Alone, that's when things start picking up. He did Only the Lonely with John Candy. He did Home Alone 2, Mrs. Doubtfire, 9 Months, Stepmom, Bicentennial Man, and then he starts doing the Harry Potter movies.
The best.
That's where I feel like things peak. Is that fair to say?
He's made so much money off those first 2 damn movies that I don't. Yeah, I mean, he could make commercials for erectile dysfunction at this point, and he would not care. He's I don't think he gets much better than that.
Well, he starts getting, after he did The Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets. After that, he started getting into territory of like, so he did Christmas with the Cranks, which was the movie with Tim Allen and Jamie Lee Curtis.
Don't hate on it. I love it.
I'm not hating on it, but I'm saying it's not peak.
Tom, don't do. I understand it's not peak, but it's good.
Okay.
If you I will watch anything with Christmas in it, so I'm probably not the best person to ask about this.
Fair enough. And to be clear, he wrote and produced it. He didn't direct it. Joe Roth directed that. Then he directed Rent, right? Okay. Yes. Not hating on Rent, the director, the film. Then he does I Love You, Beth Cooper, which is the Hayden Panettiere. I can't pronounce that. It's like one of those like teen comedy kind of things. Then he did Percy Jackson, which that entire series, I think they hired him to kind of you did Harry Potter.
I love Percy Jackson. And I will say the movies did it dirty. Okay. They did it dirty.
And then he did Pixels, which I mean, there's no, that's, and then the last thing he did was, which I did see, which was the Christmas Chronicles. Oh, maybe I only saw the first one.
Those are really good. I really like those.
Okay. Well,
anything with Christmas, I'm watching it. Yeah. Full disclosure.
Anyway, that's the last thing that he did. Chris Columbus had a great career. Pretty good. Good for him.
He had a great career. And if we're going to get into that kind of stuff, one of the other stories I love about this whole movie is the first movie was done. They went to post-production. They presented the movie to John Hughes, and he was like, wow, this is great, but the soundtrack is absolute dog shit, and it does not match the vibe of the movie at all. And Chris Columbus was like, could you imagine if we got John Williams to do the soundtrack and the score of this movie? Wouldn't that be incredible? As a joke, like completely joking. Yeah. And if you don't know John Williams, again, we can reference, he wrote the score for Jaws, like Star Wars, like some of the biggest movies in the world. He's probably one of the greatest composers of our generation and lifetime. Harry Potter. Yeah. He worked with Chris Columbus on Harry Potter. But they sent him a copy of the script just on an off, shoot, like, hey, would you be interested? And he loved it. And he ended up doing, and Home Alone has one of the best scores and soundtracks to the movie. And it was John Williams, who is incredible.
Yeah. Best original score. Won Academy Award, Best Original Score.
It did?
This, and Best Original Song.
Makes sense.
Which was it's somewhere in my memory.
Oh. It's so beautiful. It feels like Christmas. That you hear a song and it just feels like Christmas, and it's not. I'm not talking about rocking around the Christmas tree, but just you hear that and you're like, oh yeah, it's Christmas.
Well, the other thing too, I was going to say is I gotta imagine it's I gotta imagine what's weird about this too is this is actually like, is this the only? Well, I'm taking a step back. I'm trying to think of this. Is this the only Hughes Christmas movie? Well, I guess aside from
National
Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything else in his repertoire? Oh, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Is that Christmas or Thanksgiving?
That feels Christmas to me. I don't know. I love that though.
What is he trying to get home for?
John Hose.
I thought it was Christmas? Thanksgiving for some reason.
You are correct. That is a controversy. Right. It's controversy.
He is trying to get home to have dinner at Thanksgiving dinner with his family.
Yes.
That's the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It is a Thanksgiving movie, not a Christmas movie. End of story. Once you get to November 1st, you can't watch that movie anymore. It's over.
I understand that. I respect that. I'm okay with it.
Was Beethoven a Christmas movie?
It is to me.
Is it?
Well,
do they celebrate Christmas? Do they get the dog for Christmas? Yeah, I think that was it. I don't think there's anything else under the John Hughes umbrella that might have been Christmas. Anyway, I keep pulling us away from the actual topic.
It's fine. We can always. This is what we do. We can get 10 podcasts out of this. So the first one of my favorite parts of watching the behind the scenes and all the story about it was, first of all, it almost didn't get made because they pitched it and they said, we can do this for $10 million And what they did, John Hughes loves to shoot in Chicago. So the school that he used for Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and there's another movie he used it for, Uncle Buck. It's a school location that he used for both of those movies. It was completely abandoned. And he was like, okay, we can use this as a soundstage. They walked in. Right. They built the entire interior of the house in the gymnasium.
Yeah. In the pool, right? Was this the one where they did the pool?
Was the basement.
Okay.
And they flooded the basement when the Wet Bandits flooded the basement. Yeah. They used it in the pool because they're like, oh, this is perfect. It's gonna, if we did it in the gym, it's going to leak everywhere. But in the pool, obviously, the pool was completely dry because there's no one there. And originally, they had a $10 million budget, and Warner Brothers was like, yes, you can do it for 10 mil. Let's do it. Yeah. Absolutely. And then they started to realize, okay, it might go a little bit more. And they were like, we can do this for like $14.7 million, which in the world of movies is not that much over. It's like kind of a blip. No. And Warner Brothers was like, if you can't get it to 13.5, we're out. And they're like, well, we can't. Sorry. And Warner Brothers was like, okay, we're out. But during this time, little Mr. Genius John Hughes was meeting with Fox and was like, 20th Century Fox. And they were like, I could make that movie for 14.7 million easy. Yeah. And so behind the scenes, they were like, okay, we know we're going to get fired from Warner Brothers. Don't tell anyone. And Warner Brothers were such dicks. They came in that day and they were like, okay, it's over, to every single office making the movie. They're like, bye, it's over. And a staff member that knew behind them was like, it's a Fox movie now. It's not over. It's a Fox movie now. It's not over. Yeah. The whole way. I mean, it worked out.
Well, even crazier to me, right, is I'm going back and I was trying to take a look too, but like John Hughes had bounced around studio to studio, but all of his movies were hits. And I know a lot of them have like since in like over the years become a little bit more popular and become like staples and things. But like, you know, Uncle Buck which was the last one before this, was done over at Universal Pictures. Trains, Planes, and Automobiles was done at Paramount. Ferris Bueller's Day Off was done at Paramount. So it's not like he had some track record, even like Some Kind of Wonderful, which was a couple years earlier, was also at Paramount. So it's not like he had some like bad track record where they're like, oh, I don't know, you're kind of an unknown, we're, you know, inflating budget. Like this guy had almost at that point most of the 80s decade under his belt with like multiple hits as either a writer, producer, director, or some combination, including The Breakfast Club.
Are you kidding me? Like one of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah. What's bananas about it too is I don't think through the years he ever worked with Warner Brothers, and then the first time they have a chance to work with him, they're like, whatever, cut our losses. On Home Alone. That's the one they chose to be like, whatever.
The one that has grossed almost $1 billion. And it's so funny, too, because the first weekend it came out, Siskel and Ebert, who back then, again, we're probably dating ourselves, but Siskel and Ebert were like the tell-all. Like, if your movie was going to make it, Siskel and Ebert had to give it 2 thumbs up. Yeah. And they were like, no, this is trash and we hate it. And it was releasing the same weekend as Rocky V. Yeah. And they're like, Rocky V is going to destroy this movie. It grossed 17 million its first weekend, which back then is nutso, and it ended up being number 1 for 14 freaking weeks in a row. That's insane.
Well, even funnier too, and I'm trying to pull it up here. So it was released in mid-November, right, as a holiday, which for the amount of time this lasted was actually pretty good, because I feel like now they don't really do Christmas movies now. They're just like for television. But even if they did or wanted to, like, I feel like they would just throw it in December or early December, not even like go back as far as November. Anyway, but what I was going to ask you, because I feel like maybe you might know the answer to this, is do you know when they decided to do a sequel? Like, did they know leading up to the release that this was going to be as good as it was, or did they?
I don't think I remember they said that they thought if they did 8 million the first weekend, they were going to be like ecstatic, blown away, pumped with it. So I'm assuming probably someone within that, because Macaulay Culkin was 9 when they first started shooting Home Alone, and they shot it for 8 weeks. But then Home Alone 2, he was 12. Yeah. So, and he said he wanted to do Home Alone 2 and 3 at the exact same time because Macaulay Culkin was getting older. Yeah. And the studio kind of shut it down because it would obviously have been a massive budget. Yeah. But one of my other favorite facts is Macaulay Culkin was paid $110,000 to do the first movie. By the time the second movie was made, he was paid $4.5 million.
Yeah.
Which is nutso.
That's insane.
John Candy in the first movie, which is one of my favorite stories, is he came as a favor to John Hughes. Like, he was paid less than the pizza boy that comes to the door, and he only shot for one day. He's like, I'll give you 1 day of shooting. Yeah. And apparently John Hughes, I think we talked about this in Ferris Bueller, is known for like, you stick to the script. We want you to stick to the script unless I tell you not to stick to the script. And with John Candy, he was like, let him do whatever he wants. So almost the whole John Candy day, he shot for 23 hours straight, was 100% improv. Like the whole Kenosha kickers and the polka. It was like all improv. And they said like Catherine O'Hara was like trying so hard not to laugh the whole time because it was just John Candy ridiculousness. Yeah.
And then he didn't come back for the sequel because they weren't going to pay him, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So poor John Candy.
I mean, he did okay.
Although, yeah, I mean, look, it's one of those things too, where it's like, I love John Candy, but at the same time too, it's like, where were we gonna, like, what was gonna like be the way she finds her way back to New York then to go get her son?
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, little things like, you know, because he was so obsessed with everything being on paper, I feel like John Candy's like, I'll do this for you, but like, I'm not, like, I want to improv. That's probably like his whole thing. And then the only other thing that was improv in the first movie is when Kevin McCallister like pats his face with the aftershave. He was supposed to just pat his face and move on, but he held his hands there, and that was not on script. And at first they were gonna like tell him like, no, you have to. And then they saw it and they were like, okay, we'll leave it in. And it ended up being like the most famous scene in the movie.
Kids being kids. For all the money he made for the sequel and everything that he does, he basically has nothing to show for it. Poor Macaulay Culkin.
If we should talk about the second one, even though, is this your favorite or not your favorite?
The second one is my favorite. Even to this day.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I mean, because the thing is, like, I think the first one it's a good movie, right? I mean, it's a classic, right? All those things, sets up everything, but there's something to Kevin being like completely fish out of water out in literally like an entirely different land of New York City. And even the way New York City is portrayed, I mean, I still to this day, you know, like, I literally live on running around with making movie and TV references and all, you know, the whole like cab driver, but like, ain't much better in here, kid. Like, still reference that to this day. And I have a weird, again, maybe being like a New Yorker my whole life, like New York is portrayed in so many different lights in all these different movies and TV shows over the years. And so there's a version of New York. I mean, we never covered Ghostbusters, but one of my favorite things about Ghostbusters, not yet. One of my favorite things about Ghostbusters is the way New York is a character in the movie, right? Like, it's so understated. And when people talk about why the first one is so great, and even the second one, and why it can't be portrayed again the way it was, is because New York had this like nobody gives a shit attitude. It's that combined with ghosts, combined with just them being random exterminators, just doing like grunt work, that New York plays a character, right? And so like even in this, what I loved about it too is that first off, you cannot see the New York City skyline from JFK. Let me just tell everyone that right now who's never been here.
Sad to break your hearts, people, but you can't.
Also not from LaGuardia either. I believe he landed in JFK, right? Or
yeah,
I think so.
You're in Queens, my friends.
You are far away.
Very far away.
But there's that like, whoa, New York is so cool. It's this like grandiose place. It's romantic, if you will. And then there's also the part where he gets scared and is like literally running. And New York can be a scary place to a little kid, right? It can
be a scary place to adults.
Yeah, absolutely. I have cried from a cab driver once. But that's the thing too, is right. It's like you go back to like his hometown. It's still home turf, right? It's all familiar with the exception of just being alone. Whereas New York it's alien, and I love that about it. But it's also New York, and New York plays a character in the movie, and I love that. Yeah, I think that's what I love about it. I don't know if we needed for him to just randomly have an unspoken about relative who has an abandoned, under construction apartment, and then we just relive the first movie again. Although you tell me Harry and Marv getting hit in the head with paint cans versus Kevin chucking bricks off the suck brick kid.
That felt like, so New York.
Yeah, exactly. I love
that
it.
moment, I was like, yeah, you're one of us, kid.
But Harry and Marv getting hit with bricks in the head as like Kevin threw them at him was a lot funnier to me than just the fun little paint.
It was real violent. You know what it was? It was New York violent. It was New York violent. It was New York violent, and we appreciated that. Yeah. No, I agree, and I also, there's so much of the movie, like I said, I have family that grew up in the Bronx, and my mom, that's part of her life growing up, and so I didn't know the Manhattan side of New York. Like that didn't exist to me. I had maybe been there once or twice to see the tree. Or to me, the city was not Manhattan. The city was my grandparents' apartment on, Webster Avenue in the South Bronx. Yeah. But the majesty of the movie, like how magic it felt, it made New York feel very magical. Yeah. And I loved the FAO Schwartz nod, which was Duncan's toy chest. And I loved that. If you watch the movie Big with Tom Hanks, which is like the best movie ever, it made FAO Schwartz seem so magical, and that had that same feeling of like, this is pure magic. Yeah. But there was also, like I said, a level to New York City that I would never attain as a child. Like his room service bill was $967, and today that would be about $1,800.
Oh, I was curious. Okay, when you said that,
it was like I had the whole list of it. It was okay. So we ordered 2 chocolate cakes, 6 chocolate mousses, vanilla and strawberry ice cream with M&Ms, sprinkles, cherries, nuts, marshmallows, caramel syrup, chocolate syrup, strawberry syrup, whipped cream, and bananas, 6 custard flans, a pastry cart, 8 strawberry tarts, and 36 chocolate covered strawberries. I wouldn't even know how to order flan. Are you kidding me? Like that's not in my brain.
Kevin is very cultured.
He is.
Well, I mean, actually, what's funny enough is that even that big of a bill. You're staying at the Plaza Hotel. Is just under $2,000 bill for all of that food shocking? No, I don't think so. Yeah,
but like, could you? I mean, I guess delivering that, I would be like, these people are either high as balls right now, or it is a room full of children.
Well, also, who was screaming about it? Was it the dad?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because Buzz shouts him out and was like, you spent $967 on room service.
Well, yeah. I mean, the father can chill out. I mean, we all know the father makes bank.
He can handle it. Do you know the story about how they were able to shoot at the Plaza Hotel? Like the contingencies?
I do.
I almost don't want to talk about it because it is political. But Donald Trump was like, sure, you can do it, but you have to use the Plaza Hotel's real phone number, which apparently after the movie came out in theaters, the reservations went through the roof because people called that actual number and it was real. But also I get to make a cameo. Yeah. Like that's a non-negotiable. And Chris Columbus is like, he like bullied his way into the movie, and they thought that they could cut it. But when they did the screening, a bunch of people from New York, they did the screening in New York City. People like cheered for him.
Back when he was just like a caricature.
When he was when he was just that guy. And
also, I was going to say, apparently last year there was a petition to edit it out.
No, I did not know that.
Oh, you didn't know this? And actually, as a matter of fact, in other countries, this I knew, is that there were in, I forget where it was. Maybe it was in Canada. Someone was watching it on like basic cable and realized that they cut that scene. They cut that scene of Trump's cameo. Yeah, and then there was a petition to like just edit it out, and then Macaulay Culkin responded in support of it, and apparently there was a push from fans to just like replace it with CGI and an older version of Macaulay Culkin. So just have Macaulay Culkin be like down the hall and to the left, and just do that entire thing, and then just like superimpose him instead of Trump into that scene, which we could do with technology now.
We absolutely can. I mean, Macaulay Culkin did the Google Home commercial, didn't he? Or it was like Google something. He did. And I love that. Did you have, this is like probably my favorite thing about the second movie. Like there's many things. I love that Rob Schneider's in it. I love that Tim Curry's in it. Yes. I love that they give a nod to Tim Curry, who played Pennywise.
No.
You didn't know this?
That's not what that was. Wait, what were you going to say? Because I think I have alternate facts.
Okay, great. I hope you do, because this is something I've thought for like, I don't know. I saw a YouTube video a while ago about it. But the blow up thing in the shower is a blow-up Pennywise clown.
I didn't realize that. Well, because the version that he's in came out in 89, right? The year before?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I that's not what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say the smile.
Oh, no, I did not.
The smile he gives.
Yeah.
Which, because in the movie, he does that like real evil smile, which is like the Grinch, and then it superimposes the Grinch over his face and fades into it where it's the same Grinch smile. That wasn't intended, and apparently they said to like just give like sort of this like devious smile, and he had a friend he worked with, another actor who had the smile like that, and he just tried to emulate that smile. But
that's
then
amazing.
Later on, they were just like, oh, it looks like the Grinch, and so they just superimposed it.
That is incredible. But I was going to say my favorite thing about this movie, and the way that it had a chokehold on my sisters and I, was the TalkBoy.
Yes,
and that whole thing, that toy did not exist. John Hughes created that toy. And worked with Tiger Electronics to create the toy just for the movie, and then had it released the exact same time as the movie is released. And I remember I got it for Christmas that year, and it was fucking incredible. I got the pen and I got the original TalkBoy, and the way that I would record my parents' conversations and like I would record everything. I thought I was an undercover journalist. It was amazing.
I had a friend of mine had it, and he would walk around with it taking like detective-esque notes,
so good.
Talking into his recorder, talking about like gathering information and intel and stuff. The TalkBoy was a thing. I never had it.
I'm
my
so
parents
sorry.
let me down. I know.
Do you want me to I'll heal your inner child and buy you one off eBay.
You know how many times I've like thought about going back and like finding stuff. I'm like, oh man, that thing I didn't have as a kid, or that thing I did have a kid is that no one remembers, and going back and buying it for my kid, even though he would have no care whatsoever about it, because it's not something.
I'm gonna lay one on you right now. Again, I'm going off script here, but
okay.
Do you remember? I mean, this is probably the greatest memory of my childhood, and the way. I mean, my sister and I have talked about spending hundreds of dollars to purchase this. Yeah. It was the robot that came with cassette tapes. It was like 2XL or something.
2XL.
Oh my God. God. And still to this day, the technology of when you would choose the right answer or the wrong answer, and it would know, and it would change the dialogue about whether you got it right or wrong. That was one of the greatest toys of my childhood. I'm convinced.
I love 2XL.
It was remarkable. It was preparing us for pub trivia. Fun fact about the movie that we should be talking about before we talk about 90s toys for an hour. Did you know this? All the kids in the toy store scene got to keep a toy.
Well, that's cool.
They got to like pick it, but it came out of their salary. I thought it was really cool until I read at the end. It was like all the kids got to leave with a toy, but the amount of the toy that they chose was deducted from their salary. What in the fuck?
Let me just say something. My son has gotten into acting this year, right? And he's done some background work. He is SAG eligible. Like he's up there, right? He's
always going to be cooler than we are. You know that, right? Like absolutely. Since he was 2.
He's in like The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and some other stuff. But so he'll get to You didn't know this?
No.
Oh, we should talk more other than this podcast.
We're related by marriage, and I know none of this.
Well, anyway, the whole point is the idea of him being on set of a movie and then him getting to play with toys, but then getting to choose his toy and then have it deducted from his salary is a little how do you do that to kids? Yeah, that's awful.
I don't know. Like that's when I read that, I was like, what the fuck? That's so bad. Dickholes.
Because at that point, it's like, oh, here's a toy. By the way, you kind of worked for free or for that toy. But also, it's like, what kid's going to be like, oh, no, I don't want the toy. I'll just take the money. Like, no one's going to do that.
I mean, my parents would be like, she doesn't want it. The other fact that I read was that they have a Live Like Kevin package at the Plaza where it includes a complimentary ice cream sundae and a 25th anniversary backpack with all the Home Alone DVDs. I don't know if that still happens. Maybe that was in the 90s, but they did have a Live Like Kevin package. Imagine all the little rich New York City shithead children that were like, I want to do a Live Like Kevin package for my birthday at the Plaza Hotel.
I'm gonna read it off. Can I read it?
Please do.
It is still on the Plaza website. It is still available.
No,
it is absolutely still available.
Oh my God. I know what I'm doing for my birthday.
Get lost in New York, Kevin McCallister style, through the whimsical offer, guests of the new celebrity Dig Dang Dong staying at the world-renowned Plaza Hotel can live out all of Kevin's dreams by recreating some of their favorite iconic scenes from the popular 90s film Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. Start your experience with an exciting 4-hour private limousine ride around New York City to visit the famous filming locations from the movie, including the Empire State Building, Rockefeller Center, Central Park, Carnegie Hall, and Radio City Music Hall. Of course, no limousine ride would be complete without your very own delicious hot cheese pizza to savor while you relive Kevin's famous limo pizza scene. After you visited all the sightseeing locales Kevin saw and returned to your room with, quote, one of those little refrigerators you have to open with a key, make yourself cozy with your extra large bed, Kevin style, and call down for your over-the-top ice cream sundae delivered right to your bed. 2 scoops, make it 3. You're not driving. So it says the package includes limousine ride around New York City, visiting those locations, which I already mentioned. The limo ride is not a guided tour. So I can just imagine just some...
For 4 hours, they're going 3 blocks. Like, are you kidding me? In a limo? You're not moving, my friend.
For those that don't know New York City, so the Plaza Hotel is at the south end of Central Park, the southwest side of Central Park. So then it's going to drive you down to past Rockefeller Center, past the Empire State Building. You're already right next to Central Park. I guess they'll just make a loop around at some point going back. And then Carnegie Hall and Radio City Music Hall, which is at Rockefeller Center. Spoiler alert. So it's not really going that far. I guess it has to go all the way down to Carnegie Hall and just make a loop. But it's also, I love the fact that it's not a guided tour. So they're just going to drive you past those locations. It's like
for 4 hours.
The limo driver is just going to put those points on a Waze
on Waze
app. Yeah. And then just like drive you around in a circle. So it includes the limo ride, a large cheese pizza for that limo ride, and then the Home Alone sundae, which they mark this as here. 16 scoops of assorted ice cream, whipped cream, maraschino cherries, M&Ms, brownie bits, chocolate, caramel, and raspberry sauce. The offer is available year-round, subject to availability. Rates depend on your room type, and it says that they need 3 days in advance to book it. But it is absolutely
know
available.
The prices on this. For the next time we record, I will be calling for research purposes.
All right.
And I will update everyone because this is... I mean, you've got to be a real fan in 2022 to be like, I want the Kevin McCallister package.
No, you're missing it. You have to call using your TalkBoy and do that.
You're right.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I bet you it's my parents' attic. Actually, I don't know. Yeah. My mom's a bit of a hoarder, so maybe.
Reddit
she likes to save everything.
You got it.
One of obviously Tim Curry in this movie, by the way, is like just perfection. I love Tim. But the pigeon lady, we have to talk about the pigeon lady. And she was based off Mary Poppins, right?
Yes. Before you do, by the way, I actually have an answer on how much the package costs. Guess if you want to guess how much it costs.
Okay. So how much occupancy is this for?
This is for their regular guest room. So you're not even getting the suite, right? I can give you the range, how it would be from like just a regular guest room all the way up to the suite package.
I'm going to start at, and this is a 1-night situation, right?
Yes.
500 to 2,200.
Oh man, you gotta raise your expectations here. So I'll give it to you. So just the baseline Plaza King bed, which isn't even, again, far from the room Kevin had. At the bottom range, you're looking at $2,870 a night. Not
holy
Santa
Claus shit! I clearly have never stayed at the Plaza Hotel. People.
Now, if you want the full experience, right? You want the full-fledged 1-bedroom suite like Kevin had. Now you're looking at $5,220 a night. So,
my God.
And by the way, hey, wait, I want to throw this out there. It's available year round and your wedding is coming up. So, for your honeymoon.
Yeah. I couldn't get Hendry to spend $5,000 for us to go to Bali. You think he's going to spend it to go to the city? We'd be sleeping in your apartment before we stayed there.
Well, maybe this is actually even better than Kevin's room. Now that I'm thinking about this too, because the 1-bedroom suite includes butler service. Did he have butler service? No.
Yeah. Wasn't that what Tim Curry was?
No, I thought he was just like the manager. If anything, well, yeah, no, he was like
you're right.
Yeah.
So maybe, because what was Rob Schneider then? He was just
bellboy.
Like the crew, just the bellboy.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So let's knock it down.
No,
right?
I'm still not doing that. I still think it's insanity.
Well, there's the Junior King suite, right? That's only $3,600. Junior, one bedroom regular suite, not the legacy suite, is $4,000. So I mean, you can anywhere between just around $3,000 to $5,000. You can do that for one single night.
That's so lovely. I can't wait until we're going to book this, guys, for Can We Talk About 1 year anniversary party, and we will we'll record from the Kevin McCallister suite.
Yeah.
It'll be lovely.
Yeah. So, but okay.
That's
yes. The pigeon lady,
I love
who scared
her.
me as a child. Yes.
She did.
Yeah.
I grew up poor, so I think I was like, oh, I could be related to that nice homeless lady.
No, she scared me, and I was like, oh, the pigeon poop is everywhere. Like, why would she want that? Like, that woman would be very much sick if she was surrounded by pigeons and pigeon
She's
crap.
Unhinged in the real world. Yeah, she's got issues. And she's the person after you've had Carmine's, if you're a tourist in the city, you give her your leftovers. She's a poor lady. She was unhinged. But I love, one thing I do love about these movies is I am always rooting for the misunderstood underdog character that everyone thinks awful. Like in the first movie, the nice old man whose kid isn't talking to him. And in this movie, you've got like the combo of the pigeon lady and also the nice man at the toy store, who I'm pretty sure is like a magical Santa elf of some sort. Like he's an angel sent from above. I loved him. So I love that those characters exist because I am all about, like I said before, anything Christmas. I love the sweet feels. And the pigeon lady gave me the sweet feels. I was like, oh, I hate when people make fun of other people in movies like that. I felt bad for her.
Yeah. To your point, like the neighbor from the first movie, like despite the stories from Buzz and everything, like even you're like, he didn't kill anyone. He's still like a grimacing old man who I'm like, why would you engage with that man? Just put your head down and walk past him without engaging whatsoever. We don't need to talk.
Sometimes I'm so shocked that I've made it to 35 because I am. Even when I was a child, I was like, look at that poor murdery looking man. I'm going to go give him a hug. I can't believe I've made it this far. I can't believe I've made it this far. One of the, I watched a YouTube video on this, and the pigeon scene where, Marv and Harry get attacked by all the pigeons. They trained 300 pigeons and then they covered themselves in birdseed. And one of the pigeons flew into Marv's mouth to get a seed that fell into his mouth. And he said it was the most disgusting, awful experience of his life.
I can imagine. Like gross. One pigeon is enough, much less 300. And on top of that, too, the poor Marv, Daniel Stern has dealt with that, the tarantula on his face in the first one.
Oh, he had some wrecks.
I mean, albeit, I hope he got some, as they say in the biz, I hope he got some points on the movie, because to deal with that and then just have to like get your paycheck and go home, like even after all these years, it's like, I hope this guy. I feel
like the stunt people in these movies have to be just like another level. I remember reading something about that fall that Harry does where he's walking up the front steps in the first movie and he falls straight up in the air and then flat on his back. That is now referred to as the Home Alone in the stunt world. When they need you to go up in the air and be like horizontal to the ground and fall, that's the Home Alone. And I remember reading that like the first movie changed the way that stunts were done on movies, because it was so, Chris Columbus was like, after every stunt, it's not a funny day for us. Like we all would look at each other and be like, is he okay? Like it was a very somber, scary thing for stunts. Made me laugh, but
yeah. Well, I was going to say too, just recently, Joe Pesci did a interview he did an interview over email talking about, because I think we're actually at the anniversary year for, I forget how many years it's been.
Look at us being on time here.
Look at that. Because this came out in 92, 90. What year did this come out? The second one. The Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, came out November 20th, 1992. It's been, I don't want to count how many years it's been. But out of that, Joe Pesci did like a email interview. I think it was like with People or something. The one thing he mentioned in there that I don't think anyone had known before is that on 2 is when there's that scene where like his head gets lit on fire, right? Like he opens the door and there's like the blowtorch that like blows fire on his head. Apparently he actually got hurt from that. Apparently, for whatever reason, or he didn't add a lot of context to it. So now people are speculating, but apparently he got some degree burns from from that stunt that he did on his own. But apparently, you know, the rest of the stunts, obviously he gave it off to the stunt people. But for that one, he did get burned.
That's awful. That's so awful.
I mean, now, of course, nowadays, if that was like something like that, they needed to film, they would just be CGI. They would just put the fire in afterwards. But they probably set him up with like a fireproof hat and just had him do it. And you can see like that scene is so coordinated because he like sticks his head in and it lights on fire and he stands very, very still. But apparently, you know, it got him a little bit somewhere. So he got some.
I mean, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So he's a better man than me.
Yeah. But I guess to bring it full circle, to tie a bow on it, and which one did you like better? I mean, I think we kind of did that in the beginning.
One thing I did forget to say that I really love is because Christopher Columbus is so obsessed with Christmas.
Yeah.
In both movies, there's a scene from It's a Wonderful Life playing in both movies because he loves Christmas so much. And I love that because it's one of the best movies ever created. Yeah. But I mean, I feel like I love the first one feels so much more nostalgic to me than the second one does. I love both of them, but the first one is the one that when someone says Home Alone, I think of that one first.
Yeah, I get that. And funny enough too, is like, I forget how long they waited because the first one came out in 90, right? And by February of 91, am I getting the dates right, by the way, there too? I'm trying to think of it.
Now that you're saying that is so insane to me because I felt like I was around for the release. I was 4 years old if it came out in 90.
So the first one came out November 1990. 2 months later, or 3 months later, 2 months later, let's call it, John Hughes had finished writing the second film. And that's when he signed an overall deal with 20th Century Fox to keep going with them because obviously
that
Warner
one came out in 92.
Exactly right. So I remember because it was a 20th Century Fox film. I remember Fox Fox afternoons or Fox Saturday mornings or whatever. They had some behind the scenes of them filming, and they filmed Home Alone 2 during the summer. I remember that. In New York, and they were like literally spraying fake snow around New York City to film those scenes. And the movie came out the following year. So it was a pretty quick turnaround for like, oh wow, we have something big on our hands here. So
I love that.
It's funny too, because like growing up, I used to love Ghostbusters 2 more than Ghostbusters the original, and I think I've since come around to being like, all right, I get the nuance and the excitement and fun of that, but it doesn't. I don't know. Maybe I was too blindsided by the glossy, commercialization of properties back then. But I'll still stick by my. I don't dislike the first one, but I think I still stick by the second one as being like.
Maybe it's because we can see ourselves in each of them. Like I grew up out here in the stickety sticks, and you grew up in the city, so. It was more realistic for me to be defending my home, which, I know this is going to blow your mind. Did not look like that.
Yeah.
And for you to be in New York City. So maybe that's why.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, I don't think there's other movies I would have a very different perspective of where I'd be like, oh man, how do you not think this one's better? This is one where I'm like, they're so evenly matched in my mind. They're so closely matched that. But for me, I'm just like, yeah, part 2 puts it over the top because we get past, like, we already know who the characters are. We know all that. And then, there's he has a TalkBoy and he goes to a hotel and he runs around a toy store, like all the extra fun things
dream.
For kids.
Yeah. Agreed.
I will have to watch both with my kid and see which one he likes better. Cause now he's grown up.
Before we recorded this, but because it is my partner's favorite movie franchise other than Jurassic Park, I had to, respect the fact that we will be watching these probably closer to Christmas as we do every single year. So,
yeah. Are there like drinking games now or anything for Home Alone or anything?
You know, as I just said that, and I can't believe you just said that, because usually what we do is we're like, we'll watch Home Alone 1 and then Home Alone 2 right after. And then we start drinking cocktails during Home Alone 1. And by the time Home Alone 2 comes around, we're either so goddamn fucking drunk we can't watch Home Alone 2, or we both fall asleep. And so I think in the past, 12 years of us doing this, I've probably seen the first 35 minutes of Home Alone 2 many a time. And, that's where I get to it.
Yeah. So maybe that's why.
Gotta be drinking games.
I was going to say, have you always drank before going into Home Alone 2, even as a kid? Maybe that's why you don't like it as much.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. Makes a whole lot. Although my mom's not much of a drinker, and my dad's basically smoked pot every single day of his life since he was 12 years old. So probably they were feeding me edibles or something. Maybe. I don't know. That's more likely.
I feel like this doesn't feel. I don't feel like this is a movie that would be something where we're like, oh man, this would be enjoyable, drunk or on edibles or anything like that. But maybe
it just feels Christmassy.
Research.
We'll put it on. I will be honest with you. We'll put it on when we're decorating for Christmas, and it's like really good background. And then we're having cocktails and decorating our massive 1-bedroom apartment with Christmas decorations. But we, it's. I don't know. It just feels like I have to do it every year. It's like one of those things. Like I personally have to watch Love Actually every year. Yeah. It's just like a non-negotiable. And I have to watch Home Alone.
Yeah.
All of 1 and half of 2, apparently.
In your story, he just lives in the hotel forever, and that's
always. That's it.
His parents
with a TalkBoy in hand.
Yeah, his parents were like, whatever, we got rid of him. Someone should re-edit the movie too, just for fun, to like make it where like they are trying to get rid of him, and be like, oh wow,
that'd be so good, so dark, but so good.
I feel like you could probably re-edit the movie between if you take a combination of part 1 and part 2 and like re-edit it, you can make a fun, different story out of it.
New idea: Law and Order. We get a Law and Order episode where he is like a missing child, and we use the 90s Law and Order cast to try and help solve this mystery of this child.
Yeah. 90s Law and Order was cool.
So good. I'm an SVU fan, but 90s Law and Order. Do it up.
We definitely have more holiday movies to get through before we reach the end of the year. And then we got to figure out then this podcast has to take a whole different turn as we get into the new year, because we have to figure out what else we're going to talk about.
Fresh.
Freshy fresh. Maybe we'll do Ghostbusters. Maybe we'll do what was the TV show I mentioned I wanted to do? We
have to do Community.
We have to do Community. I didn't realize we didn't do
You said you had to do that one, and then there was you did say another one too.
I mentioned one here.
So many.
To rewind.
Which one?
Figure it out. I don't know. I mentioned it during this podcast, and I already forgot what it was. We'll figure it out.
I would like to do New Girl.
Yes. New Girl.
Well, I mean, if you're listening to this, we do have an Instagram account. So if you want to send us suggestions, we will gladly take them. Absolutely. Suggestions are always welcome. And by the way, speaking of which, one friend suggested The Witcher, and that was before the Henry Cavill recasting happened. And I've seen him since then, and he was like, please don't do The Witcher now. He has come out and said that? Oh yeah, he's no longer part of the Witcher franchise. It is one of the that Hemsworths. I knew that. I just didn't know that he actually came out and said like, it's because I don't agree with the direction of the show going. And I believe, because he is a diehard. Again, I'm taking this from my friend Eric, who is a big Witcher fan. Shout out to you, Eric. Has said that, he's kind of a purist when it comes to the Witcher books, and they start to deviate from that. And I've also heard rumors that it's because he's going to be coming back as Superman and all these other things. But so The Witcher's off the table. I was going to say, before we get out of here, I did want to thank you. The last episode of this podcast I was not present for it, and my wife filled in and did a fantastic job. I think she did amazingly. It was amazing. It's actually one of my favorite episodes because I'm not in it. What? Shut your face. No, it's just fun. She did great. And because Dale and I have always had a mutual love and obsession with Gilmore Girls. So, not that I don't doubt that you would have had the enthusiasm necessary for such an episode. No, it was the right move. You couldn't connect about the sexiness of Jess the way that her and I could. No, and then just to add to it too, she is now bouncing back and forth between Gilmore Girls and Hallmark
Channel movies, Christmas movies.
We are
now,
twins.
So
we are twins. Actually, I'm off the Gilmore Girls. I just did, and I don't know. Perhaps we can. I just did Wednesday, which was fantastic.
She did too.
It was absolutely incredible. Henry and I are doing a rewatch. He didn't watch it the first round. Yeah. He's loved it so far. And, I'll get back to Gilmore Girls. It is Harry Potter season for me, though. I will be honest.
That's right.
It's Harry Potter season. Yeah.
Harry Potter season.
So, also to say that thank you, everyone, for being patient. We know that we've had a couple weeks with no episodes. Tom had COVID, and then he recovered.
Yeah.
And then I was like, what would be fun? If I got COVID.
Yeah.
And I have now recovered.
Really?
So we are.
Yeah, COVID.
Or at least
COVID really
we can't get it for a while.
Podcast.
Yeah, we can't get it for a while. So.
Yeah, knock on wood, and I'm at this point, I'm like, I lost track of how many vaccinations I've had to COVID now. So I should probably check a card or something. Now I should never get it ever again. Now I feel
we're
like
good. It's really through us now.
Cool. Well, this was fun, and we'll have we'll
as
have
always.
I think we'll do another Christmas episode before
the
season's over.
Yes, we were thinking a Christmas Story. Tell us what you guys think, because the new Christmas Story just came out. So that's it's on the table.
Well, thanks for hanging out. Cool.
Bye.
All kids, no parents. Probably a fancy orphanage.